Afternoon Talk on SAFM.
Well, so I had lots of people asking me about the community champions. We couldn't do much today because some of them not available, but we'll do it. We'll do it next week, in fact. But for that to happen, I need you to email me, ashraf@safm.co.za. Just nominate somebody from your community who you think has done something that is wow. Something that is somebody who's uplifted your community that's worthy of a mention. You email that to me. We'll talk to that person. Give us a contact number as well. We'll talk to that person for 5 or 6 minutes. It's our way of celebrating community, and it's something that, as you know, that I feel strongly about. Certainly, Zanelli and I as a team feel strongly about that. For the country to be a great champion nation, we have to have community champions, and we need to duplicate that around the country. So we need to multiply the community champion effect. And the best way for us to do it here is certainly celebrate those, in fact, who do it already. Right, on the issue of the National Economic Education Trust at Gala dinner on the 24th of May, pledges certainly are welcome. As you know, it's encouraged. Very, very, very important cause. 38053. 38053, that's the SMS number. You SMS your name as well to that number, and they will call you back, and then you can make that very, very specific pledge as well. But time now for us to get into the spotlight. Today we speak to somebody not from South Africa. So what? It should be really fascinating, I can tell you now. Considering the guest we had yesterday, many people saying, I'm sure you're an American anyway. And as you know, he was born and bred in South Africa. But today it's different. It's Jeremy Hackett, who is, in fact, amongst many things, the name behind Hackett London. Now, if you're not too sure what we're talking about, I suggest you get to, amongst other places, get to Sandton City, the new wing, because there's a Hackett London store that you will find there in that new wing, just sort of close to the escalators, and you'll know exactly what we're talking about. But as you know, if you need to call in and say hi, 0891 104 207, 0891 104 207. There's some SMSs already from people who clearly identify the brand. I will go to that in just a second. SMS is 34701. Let's then get with it. Jeremy Hackett. What is it? Chairman of Hackett London? Is that right?
Yes, chairman, but to be honest, I'm really just a shopkeeper.
Okay, so is that sort of bringing it down to grassroots level? That ultimately, forget the titles. What are you, just selling goods?
Well, that's how I started. I've been in the business now for 40 years. I started off as a salesman while I was still at school. I had a Saturday job, sweeping the floor and making the tea, generally being kicked around. Then I went to work in a tailor's shop where I started to really learn about tailoring. This was in a city called Bristol, which is where I grew up. Uh-huh. And then when I was 19, I decided that, if I was going to make my way in the world, I would need to go to London. And so I started off in London. I worked in the King's Road. I then went to work in Savile Row, which is the world-famous tailoring street. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's where I really started to learn about clothing properly.
Okay. Normally, we'd sort of go back to where you started later on. But there's nothing wrong. I mean, you've maybe that's just the way it is. So you've sort of established where you've come from. I'll get back to that in detail in a moment. Let's just talk about where you are. I mean, you're in the country now because of what?
Well, we just recently opened our first shop in Johannesburg in the shopping mall, and I've come here really for the opening party and to spread the word a little bit.
Okay, and the store, it's called what? Just Hackett's or Hackett's London?
Hackett London.
Hackett, no, not with an S, right?
No S.
Okay,
no.
And my understanding is what is it? It's the quintessential British or what? English,
yes,
British, which
British clothing. Okay, yes, because we have a lot of clothing made in Scotland and Wales and Ireland, so it encompasses the British Isles.
Why do you think there's a market here for it?
Well, in London we've noticed that over the years that we've had a fair number of South African customers. And then we started a relationship with a partner, and we realised that there really was a market for us here. And we've been trading out of the airport for the last couple of years, very successfully. So we thought, well, now's the time. And
so far, what's it been like at the new store?
Very good.
You've had a chance to look at it. I know you're talking tonight.
Well, we've been open for a while to sort of bed in and get settled and understand the market, and it's been excellent. So we're very optimistic.
Talk to me about the type of clothing that you'd find at Hackett London.
Well, it's a mixture really of quite tailored clothing and a lot of casual clothing that we we build our casual clothing around the sponsorships that we have in England. And one of our main sponsorships would be something like Aston Martin Racing. So we develop a lot of product around that, which is incredibly British, very sporty and very casual. We also sponsor London Rowing Club. We're very famous for our polo. We sponsor a lot of polo. I've just come back from Dubai, where we sponsored the British Polo Day. We also sponsor a cup called the Rundle Cup, which is the oldest polo match played in England. And we've been fortunate enough in the past to have Prince William and Prince Harry both play for the team. So that gives a lot of credibility to the brand and authenticity.
Interesting, considering your point that you made earlier on. I'm just a shopkeeper. Your business is certainly pitched very much at the top end of the market, isn't it?
Yes, it's at the higher end of the market, but it's not out of a lot of people's reach. We're not in the super luxury market. We're in what I would say probably is a premium market. It's not high street, but then it's I think it's a value for money, really.
Value for money. Tell me more about the type of clothing. I mean, I'm seeing what you're wearing now. It's a suit. I have to describe it. It's a cotton suit.
3-button, pretty classic. I've had it a number of years, and I think that's the thing about the.
And this is from your store, I presume.
Yes. Well, it's made by our tailor in London, but the thing about most of our clothes is that they're fairly classic. It's not high fashion. It's something that you invest in. So you buy a good suit or you buy a good blazer and you keep it for a number of years. It's not a fashion fad. It's more about buying into a certain lifestyle, really. Classical, good quality.
Because I'm just observing, I'm not too sure whether you're going to get many men in this country who actually wear what I'd call formal cotton suits. Because I mean, this in essence is it's a smart,
yes, this is. But we also do a number which are much more unstructured, unlined, very little shoulder padding, and a much more casual suit than the one I'm actually wearing today. But today I wore this because I felt I ought to make a bit of an effort for you.
Well, I'm impressed anyway. 0891 104207. Jeremy Hackett is my guest. He's the chairman of Hackett London. And that's so amongst the stores, you'll find the latest one at Santon. There's one at the airport as well, or Tembo, yeah. Just your thoughts if you've actually seen the stores, but more importantly, we're going to reflect on the life of Jeremy Hackett, which I can tell you now, he's touched on some of it earlier on. But it's quite interesting indeed if you certainly want to pursue it. I'll pick out some of your comments. You can also comment on Facebook, and I'll read some of them in a moment. Just like my page. And if you're going onto Twitter, my handle, Ashraf Garda, just cut me in on that timeline. But also just use the hashtag SAFM, which will allow us to, in fact, check out those as well. Okay, so how big then is Hackett London around the world?
Well, at the moment, it's still growing. It's got a long way to go, but we operate about 50 stores. We sell to about how many concessions? Quite a number of concessions around the world. Plus, we have a big wholesale operation. So it's a growing business. Most of our business is done through Europe, Spain, France, Italy, Germany, Belgium, Holland. So we cover there, and we're now moving gradually into the Far East. We have a business in Japan, in Tokyo and Osaka, but we're planning now to move into China. So in the autumn we'll open our first shop in Hong Kong, and then we'll open 2 shops in the north of China, and then over the next few years we'll end up opening roughly 45 shops.
So currently you have how many then?
About 50 of our own stores.
50 of your own. You can open up another 30 odd stores.
Yeah, 45 odd.
Right.
Stores,
Why do I feel, just for interesting, you brought up Aston Martins earlier on, that this may be the route that Formula One is taking, which is that you have to sort of grow the market beyond the traditional sort of European Anglo market to survive in the world as it is. True, right?
Well, the funny thing is that we've been selling in the Far East for a number of years, and they appreciate more of the English British style than we do in our own country. So it's quite extraordinary that they really have an appreciation for all things that are really British, true British. So it's not, we're not having to pander to a market. The market is something that wants us. So I think it is looking very optimistic.
So let's then, okay, so if you're saying 30 odd stores now, impact from the world economic downturn, have you felt it at all?
Well, our business is spread right across Europe, and some markets are a little tougher than others, but overall we've fared pretty well. I think we're sort of going against the flow a little bit. So, we realise it's not going to be easy, but I think our positioning in the market is healthy. So, obviously, we just have to keep our eye on the ball and be careful.
Okay, two or three interesting comments. Tam Sankar saying, Ashraf, asked Jeremy if there is still a market for new clothing brands, given the fact that so many of the brands are already well established, but some are disappearing from the market. I'm not sure whether he's referring to your brand as new, or maybe he's an aspirant new brand builder. But either way, you want to comment on that?
What he feels that there are too many brands, or
he's in fact saying there are so many, and some of those well-established ones are disappearing. Whether there's a market for a new clothing brand.
Well, judging by how people respond to our brand in all the new countries that we're operating in, is being very receptive. So I think there's always room for a brand that has something to say. So, and I think we have a very strong point of view. And our customers like shopping with us. They like our shopping environment. They like our service. And I think that service is something that we're very good at, and something that men really appreciate when they go shopping, because on the whole, men are not expert shoppers. So they like to go somewhere where they're looked after, and then they become loyal. So I think that even however good your products are, if you can't back it up with good service, then your customers will go elsewhere. So, some of those brands, maybe they're not providing that extra little bit of service. Okay,
well, certainly Mohammed saying, well, my favourite brand at present, referring to yours. So clearly you're doing something right.
Oh, well, that's good. Thank you, Mohammed.
You've certainly got one customer already, so that's not bad at all. Let's, we spoke about this sometimes on this media show I do on a Sunday morning, about how you have the brand with the brand reputation, but how that can be damaged, in fact, by poor service in store. So the service does not live up to the glorious brand reputation. How much time and effort do you, in this case, the shopkeeper, pay to sort of managing the reputation?
Enormous. We have a lot of staff training, and it's pretty rigid. And we don't just take people on; they go through a 3-month probationary period, and if they don't pass that, then they're out. So and most of the people who actually come to our business want to come because they really enjoy clothing. If you don't enjoy clothing, well, then go elsewhere. So you've got to have a passion for it to start with. And then I think they start to belong to the Hackett culture, and it just takes off, really.
I made the point to you earlier about the name Hackett, which is your surname.
It is.
But yes. Did you ever get played around? Because I certainly did. I said, sort of, let's try and hack it, as in a computer.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, yes, I've heard that 100 times.
just
goes over my head.
All right. Jeremy Hackett, and we're not hacking anything, I can tell you now, is my guest. He's in the
I'm
spotlight.
certainly not hacked off by it.
No, not at all. He's in the spotlight up to around 3:45 before we get to Radio VUCA. Lots of things to talk about, in fact, because we talk about the store, the Hackett London store based at Sandton City, for starters, as well as our Tambo International Airport. But also we talk about a worldwide brand that is quintessentially British, and whether there's a market for that, but also there are lessons. And we often speak to people who are keen on starting their own businesses, their own labels as well. So if you have any thoughts, you certainly want to stay tuned to this one here. But anytime you know this, if you want to call in, it's always welcome. 0891 104 207. I'll pick out some more SMSs as well in just a moment. 34701, 34701. They'll cost you £2. Let's then talk about, because I thought it's interesting, you made the point about being a sponsor, and you rattle off some significant properties that you in fact do sponsor. Do you want to just go through them again and talk to me about the strategy around it?
Our biggest sponsorship is with Aston Martin Racing, and our second biggest would be the Oxford and Cambridge Boat Race, followed by London Rowing Club, and then the British Army Polo. So they're all sponsorships really that are specifically British, very, very pointedly British. And for us to add our names to those companies, to those groups, I suppose, is it adds credibility to our brand. It allows us to build a clothing range around those brands, and it also adds an authenticity, because you see brands out in the market who just slap their name on any old shirt without having anything to do with the brand that they're trying to promote or pretend to be.
So you need to create that synergy, right?
Yeah, and I think that it's all about being a real brand, and our customers, I think they appreciate that. And a lot of them, they either participate or they're spectators at these sports. So we're really sort of aiming at that audience. So.
Aiming at the audience. We'll find out exactly how those brands, in fact, work. With Jeremy Hackett, let's just talk about the specific ones. You spoke about polo, and that certainly essentially gives us a sense of that type of set, because our experience of course, South Africa being a former British colony, we don't have much polo. I mean, there's the odd competition, but I don't think it's sort of rooted in the culture whatsoever. But certainly from our expectations, it's rooted in that. And you probably blogged about it, about the what do you call it? The perfectly cut cucumber sandwich.
I've probably said that in the past at some point. Yes.
Tell me about the fit and why that works for you.
Well, we've been involved in polo since I think about 1986, and two army officers came into the shop one day and said, "Look, we've been asked by our commanding officer to get sponsorship for polo because he said the army isn't going to pay, so you've got to go out there and find somebody who might sponsor you." And so we thought, well, it was very cheap, and we thought, well, we'll give it a go. It's a chance to go and watch some polo. So we went off. We made some shirts for the team with Hackett on and the numbers. And at first, it was the first time we'd actually put our name onto any product so blatantly. And we put the shirts out there, and the team wore them. And then the boys in the shop said, "We really like those shirts. Can we have some?" So I made about 25 for all the staff. And then the staff's friends started saying, "We like those shirts." So I had 50 made and put them into one of our shops on a Saturday. By the end of the day, they'd all gone. And that was the beginning of really the casual sportswear Hackett polo shirts.
So it happened quite by chance?
Purely by chance. No marketing, no business plan, just thought, well, it seems like a nice idea.
How often does that happen? Because, I speak to some key decision makers here, and they talk about strategy and having a very clear plan. Basically, what you're saying is this is all incidental. Well, some of it. I'm talking about. About your casual stuff.
In the instance of the polo shirts, it gave us the opportunity to think more widely about, instead of just doing tailoring, well, let's build it into a more casual wear. There's obviously an appetite for it, and so in the early days, it was simply an idea that was good, and often the simple ideas are the good ones. So,
now at that time, did you find, considering the market that you were pitching at, that you may have had the salespeople who loved the T-shirts and some of the others, but it also posed other problems in terms, because I'm sure you had that internal discussion. The fact that the name Hackett is so emblazoned, is that what you really wanted? Did you get feedback from your regular customers?
Well, not for a long time, actually. Then we did have a little hiccup when the football crowd got hold of it. And I think that was in Euro 2000. The football boys started wearing it, and then they appeared on television, bashing each other.
These are supporters you're talking about?
Yes, football supporters bashing each other over the head, and there they are wearing a Hackett polo shirt. So that was a little hiccup, but, these boys move on and some poor other brand gets it. So
how did you manage that? The fact that they obviously bought the stuff.
Well, we stopped selling them.
You didn't sponsor it.
No, we stopped selling them for a while, and then they moved on to another brand. And funny enough, in any other country, we don't have the problem. It is only a minority in England who upset it a little bit. But, we've moved on. Okay.
Then the other brand, the Aston Martin thing?
Well, the Aston Martin, that came about because David Richards, one of the owners of Aston Martin, is a good customer of Hackett. And I bumped into him in our Sloane Street shop one day, and we were just chatting, and he said, well, maybe we should do something together. And I thought, well, I'm not going to pass that opportunity up. The idea of being able to work with the most famous British brand in the world, to have my name linked to that, or, impossible to turn down. Because the thing is, whenever I mention the name Aston Martin to any man, you sort of see their eyes glaze over, and they're they're almost on another planet, the thought of, an Aston Martin. So it's terrific for us.
So even that one happened more on,
it wasn't,
on emotional attachment.
Yes.
Logic.
Afterwards all the, number crunching came, which I didn't really get involved with. I just came up with the ideas of, actually working together. But, the business side.
Not
Had
bad,
to kick in at some
not bad
point.
for a shopkeeper.
Not bad for a shopkeeper, yeah.
0891 104 207. There's another. I'll read through some of the SMSs in just a second. 0891 104 207. Jeremy Hackett in the spotlight. He's the chairman of Hackett London. That's the clothing store, and maybe not many in this country now, but there are a couple. Famously, the one in Sandton City at this point in time. And we'll talk about that all around the world as well. I want to just say, because before we get to news time on the issue of sponsorship, because I won't come back to that later on. So those were the two. Then there's also the sense, that brought you the association then with British royalty.
Yes, a little bit, yes. Yeah.
Little bit. Tell us more.
Well, we've been fortunate that because we sponsor the British Army polo team, both Prince William and Prince Harry have been in the army. Well, Harry still is. So they played for the British Army team, and very good players they are as well.
Okay, expected this question to come up from someone. Are all the clothing, or is all the clothing manufactured in the UK, or is it made in China? If yes, why China? If it's a proudly British brand.
Actually, when I started this brand, this is a good question, actually. When I started this brand 30 years ago, manufacturing in England still existed. Today, there is hardly any manufacturing in England. At one time, we produced 95% of our product in England. Today, I make an enormous amount of cloth in England, and tweed from Scotland, sweaters from Scotland, knitwear from scarves and things like that. The things that you expect to be typically British, we still source in England. But we make a lot of clothing in Italy, because Italy is very good at tailoring. I'd make it in England, but it doesn't exist anymore, unless it's made by our tailor in the shop. We do make a little in China. Everybody makes in China. They're very good. They're very nimble. The price is good, which means that you pass that on well to the customer as well. I have no qualms about making in China, but we still put our British slant on it. So I think that's the way it is. If more manufacturing comes back to England, then I'll certainly start manufacturing in England again. I look all the time.
And you're not finding it?
I'm not finding it yet, no.
And more importantly, do your customers have an issue with the fact that 80% of whatever is under Hackett London, in fact, is not made in London or
no, not really,
or in the Midlands or anything like that?
No, because I think that most people now understand that British manufacturing isn't there like it was 30 years ago. And as long as the quality is still good and the fit is good, then I think people are quite happy.
Right, we're going to pick up on some of the other issues as well. There's a couple of more SMSs, but if you have an opinion, and again, if you've actually had access to the brand, if you've touched it, if you know what it is, I certainly want your views on this one as we put Jeremy Hackett in the spotlight. I see there's one or two calls that I may want to take now, maybe just defer it for just a second. 0891 104 207. But let me remind you as we put Jeremy Hackett in the spotlight at
Watch. Afternoon Talk on SAFM.
Right, I want to talk to Jeremy Hackett about a very important award that he received last week. But let's just hold that thought for the second, because I want to pick out one or two calls. You need to get your headphones on now, Jeremy. 0891 104 207. Eric in Joburg. Hi, Eric.
Hi, how's it, man?
Good, and how's Eric?
I'm okay. I got into your Sandton store. I got one of your tag hair watches, I think. You made
really?
About 20.
Thank you very much. They're really good.
Yeah, that's good. Tell me, is that continuing? Could you maybe talk about that collaboration and how it came about? Also, I just wanted to find out. I mean, your brand is somewhat linked to Britain behaving properly, isn't it? I mean, if Britain becomes a pariah, how to survive?
So the brand is about Britain behaving properly. Interesting question. Okay, we got that.
I'll listen on the radio.
Thanks for that, Eric. Okay, so did you get that properly?
I think so.
Suggesting that the brand is so linked to Britain that it almost inspires the British to sort of behave in a certain way. If I can understand that, sort of Britain behaving properly. What actually happens when Britain becomes the pariah?
That is an interesting concept, Britain behaving properly, because we have a terrible reputation for behaving incredibly badly everywhere we go all around the world. So if I can do something to help us behave a little bit better, then I think that's no bad thing.
But I mean, in general, your brand pitched the way it is at a certain market is certainly pitch at this, as I made the point, the sort of the quintessential British brand, not so much the guys who are working in the stores, but certainly those that sort of take the trip to the countryside. I mean, that's the market, isn't it?
Well, that's a proportion of the market, but I think the thing is, it isn't just about that aspect of it. It's about people who want to buy clothes. It's about style, and whoever you are, if you like good clothes, then we have good clothes, and that's what's more important than.
How important, therefore, maybe just to pick up on what Erica said, is when you have a brand called Hackett London, you're linking it to London completely, which means you're linking it to England.
Well,
right. So how important does London and England have on the impact of the brand of your store?
Oh, probably quite a lot, but the reason we have London on it is because we started in London. Our first shop was a tiny little shop in Fulham, and London was just actually qualifies what we do.
Yeah, but it certainly comes across as when you're buying Hackett, you're buying London.
Yes.
Meaning that it's important to you that London remains,
Well,
what is that phrase? If you're tired of London, you're tired of life, right?
Oh, yes. So
you need to ensure that you always have those aspirations for that.
Yeah, and I think outside of England, there's a great appreciation for London. I think it's one of these things, the grass is always greener. In England, people, they buy into a brand that has, I don't know, Yves Saint Laurent Paris or some New York brand, So it's, there's a perception of brands which appear differently outside of its country.
Okay, I'm going to pick out one more of the callers, but before I get to that, let's just talk about the award that you received last week.
Yes, actually, it's I'd forgotten about it. I'm glad you raised it.
Not that important, is it? Yeah.
It was. We've just been awarded the Queen's Award for Export, which is really quite prestigious, and adds a certain amount of credibility to the brand. And it's very nice to have it on the headed notepaper.
So now you can use it. Did you need it?
I'm not going to emblazon it across a polo shirt.
Can you imagine your yobs then sort of getting out of control, and what will actually happen with that? You wouldn't want to do that yet. Let's just go back, because I'm afraid we may be running out of time for this one year as I pick out some of the other callers. I want to go back to your dream. So you were this youngster, right? And your first job was what? Just working in a store?
Well, making the tea and sweeping the floor, age 16 really, and doing the running around.
All right.
And I was still at school, and then I failed all my exams at school. The headmaster suggested my future was better elsewhere, so I went to the shop where I had the Saturday job, and they kindly gave me a full-time job, and I did that for a couple of years in Bristol, and decided that if I was going to make my way, then I needed to go to London, because that's where all the action was. Did
you probably tell the headmaster that his future was also better elsewhere? Don't answer that question. You think about it. Let's get to another of the callers from Cape Town this time. Dr. Matika on the line. Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Ashraf.
Yes, hi. Go for it.
Is Dr. Matika speaking? Yes, I just hear you interviewing Jeremy Hackett.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I was in Netherlands 2010, and I bought some of his outfits in one of his shops. And you know what? Actually, I had as a memory was his booklet. That's got it's like a postcard. He made a booklet with postcards in it. So it keeps that memory of fashion in mind. And I'm grateful that he's got some shops that are established in South Africa. I think I'll visit them.
Okay.
And buy some items.
So
anyway, I'm wishing you well, Jeremy Hackett.
Yes, thank you very much. I remember those booklets. I think they were called The Art of Dressing, and we photographed. I think the booklet was called The Art of Dressing, and it's a series of photographs that we shot in the Saatchi Gallery in London.
Exactly, and you've got your name there, Hackett of London.
That's right, exactly on the front.
The title.
Yeah.
No. So you're a fan then, Doctor?
Pardon?
Of the brand. You're a fan of the brand.
Well, not that I'm a fan of a brand. If I was a fan of a brand, I would actually go in, the shop more often. But I only saw it in Netherlands when I was there for work purposes. But it's good to hear that it's here in South Africa as well. I think I'll definitely visit, because he makes high quality material. So I value his designs and his effort he put behind the clothing.
Okay, that's what you
Thank
want
you.
to hear.
Said without my prompting.
Thank you so much, and I'm glad you called.
Yes.
Interesting
Okay, bye.
one, yeah. Thank you. There you are. But I mean, that's your market, isn't it? I mean, you
Yes.
want to sell to him.
Absolutely. Well, he sounds like he's a customer already. But I certainly welcome him back to the stores.
All right, so I'm going to go back to the headmaster saying your future should be elsewhere.
Yeah.
And you got into the store, and fine. You know, I'm not going to go through the motions of what you did in the first days, but what turned the guy making tea and coffee and cucumber sandwiches to the guy consuming cucumber sandwiches?
Well, I've always been interested in clothing ever since I was a little boy, really, and I'd always had this thing about wanting to make things the way I wanted to make things. And I started off Hackett selling vintage clothing, and I would go to the markets 5 days a week in London picking up vintage clothes, which I would then sell in the shop. But I could never get enough vintage clothes, so I thought, well, the only way to make this into a real job would be to recreate the vintage clothes new. And that's what I did, and I put the name Hackett on, and it was then that I thought, this is the beginning of a brand. I wasn't just a second-hand clothes merchant, I was creating a brand, and that brand was Hackett.
But you didn't do it on your own, right?
No, I had a partner at the time, we did it together, yeah.
But at that stage you had this dream? How big was your dream?
Oh, well, no, I think it was, in fact, the dream wasn't very big. The dream was to be able to sell clothes with my label on, my own brand, rather than...
Like millions of people who go to fashion design school
yes,
around the world,
yeah.
and they may have a label, but only their family buys it, right?
I didn't expect to be sitting here today talking about a new shop in South Africa. This was 30 years ago. I never thought that Hackett would take off the way it has done, but it seems to have caught the imagination not only in England but across the world. I mean, the Japanese absolutely adore Hackett. So.
How do you feel about it? The fact that yours is an aspirational brand.
Well, I feel quite pleased, actually. Quite happy.
You were hesitating, like there's something to think about. There's not much to think about, is it?
Well, after a while you sort of detach the name from yourself, really, and the name becomes a business, and you forget that it's you, really.
In building the empire, some of the vital lessons that you've learned that you would like to share with myself and the other people listening?
Well, I think you have to be pretty focused on what you're doing. Focused but not blinkered. So that you're building a brand and you're maintaining the theme, but you look outside it as well. I think it's also important that you take it one step at a time, not try to take on everything.
Just by the way, the call we had about the TAG Heuer watches, and don't think we really answered that question. We're speaking about the synergy of that relationship. Maybe
again, that really came by chance because I knew the managing director of TAG Heuer in London, and I just chatted to him, and he said, "Well, why don't we do a watch together?" And so we did this limited edition watch with, again, no business plan or marketing plan, but we just thought it would be something nice to do. They're connected to motor racing, we're connected to motor racing. TAG Heuer is probably the best-selling watch in England and sells to our sort of customers. So we just felt that there was an opportunity, and we sold out. Well, I think there's one left in the shop if you're quick, if it's still there.
At Centre City, maybe?
Yes.
Okay. Now we know. Right, we've got about 2 minutes to go. Some of the things, is there do you have an autobiography? Have you had one done already? Were you planning it?
Actually, I am thinking about it.
What would you title it?
Well, I'm sometimes a little reticent about asking people things. So I think I'd have something like, I didn't like to ask.
Okay. We'll see if people bind you into that one there. Just by the way, someone saying the London on the label clashes with the Eurocentric news media reporting. Not expecting you to answer that question. Right, couple other ones. So is there a book that you recommend, whether it's a book about fashion or a book about business or just a book about life that you recommend that we all read?
I'm just reading actually at the moment, or in fact rereading, is The Great Gatsby.
Okay.
And
it's a classic, yeah.
It's a classic, Scott Fitzgerald. It's a great book. The movie was good. And then they're remaking the movie this year, so it'll be interesting to see how that comes out. But we're also, because it's coming out, we're doing a little story around that for spring next year.
And that happened by chance as well, I'm sure.
Well, it did really, yes.
Okay.
Because I just saw that the film was coming out, and I thought, oh, everybody's going to be talking about The
there's
Great Gatsby.
nothing long-term planning about everything that you just said. It all just happens very
It's all by
Indeed.
chance.
Interesting stuff, yeah. All right. Is there, who's the one person you'd like to take out to lunch? Because you've met lots of people, I know that. But who's the one person you haven't yet done it with?
Nelson Mandela, it has to be.
You can always on. You should actually dress him. He's got the Madiba shirt.
I know. I've seen them on sale in the hotel.
You should make the
I'm
offer.
going to take one.
You should make the offer. It may just happen. Is there a quote? We've got about 30 seconds to go. Is there a quote that you'd like to leave us with?
Well, this is an Oscar Wilde quote, which I really like. You never get a second chance to make a first impression. And I think that's quite relevant to our business, really.
Good way to end it. You
It's
indeed have...
a good shopkeeper's quote.
Okay, Jeremy Hackett has made a good first impression, so no need for a second chance on this one. Yeah, and I suppose
I'd love to come back.
Well, I'll probably come to your store tonight and see.
Okay, that'd be
what you
great.
said. Jeremy Hackett in the Spotlight. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll do lots more in the Spotlight tomorrow. As per your suggestions, always Ashraf at safm.co.za. Ashraf at safm.co.za. Ashraf at safm.co.za. Ashraf at safm.co.za. Ashraf at